Hello everyone, welcome to another RT Classics where we make film frames from famous movies, and we do it all in real time and in Unity. For this one, I decided to choose one of my best friend's favorite films, The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing from 1982. And we are going to look at one of the snow scenes when the helicopter first arrives. The reason why I decided to pick this scene is, once again, it's something that we can achieve within the space of an hour or two. And at the same time, it has interesting composition. Snow is a strange material that will give us quite a challenge. And it has that really nice sharp mix with the rocks. And the helicopter is a nice addition. So the frame that I picked is going to come up soon. And here we are. So I'll pause it here. And the reason I picked this one is it offers us quite a few interesting challenges, as well as some visual complexity inside the frame. So it's not just, a white expanse of snow with a small tiny helicopter, which isn't as interesting as doing something like this, for example. Another challenge is the cloud layer up here. Something like that is always a little tough to achieve in real time. So we'll try to create a sort of a soft cloud layer like this. We have some shadows from the clouds on the ground, which adds some visual complexity to the snow layer. And we still have, a few rocks and peaks in the background that, adds a bit of interesting details to the horizon. So let's get started. So I've already launched Maya, Unity, and most of the tools that I will need for this, just to save on time. And I just did a quick search on the type of helicopter that is being used in the movie, and from this really cool website, The Thing wiki, I found that this first helicopter is a Bell 206 Jet Ranger, and we can see it here. So doing a quick Google search on potential pre-made models of this helicopter, I came across one that had a similar paint job to the one we see here, and won't need a lot of texturing changes to match the one from the movie. We'll just have to write this text on the side, and that's probably as much as we'll need to do. Text here, text there, and maybe the two white bands up here. But we've got the green color and the black top of the nose there. But what we don't have are the ski. So I found this helicopter here that has a similar paint job to what we're looking for, and seems to be in a file format that we should be able to import within Maya. So I'll go ahead and download it. And we'll extract the folder. And we'll import it into Maya. So because this is a file format that doesn't necessarily create texture references and things like that, we might have to reassign the textures ourselves, but that's not too big of an issue. So here we have the helicopter model that we're going to need to scale straight away because it's way too big. And let's see where it is here. and we'll snap it to the grid so that we can put it closer to 0, 0, and we'll make it a little bit smaller than this even, and this is a better size, and we'll snap it to the middle of the grid so it's nice and snug at 0, 0 and sitting on the ground. And then we'll go ahead and just freeze our transforms and delete our history. Okay, so straight away I can see that there are a few polygon issues here, so let's go to our mesh display, and first of all let's set the face. Okay, and let's see what happens if we soften the edges first. And these polygons here seem to be either overlaid or just simply flipped. So a way to fix that would be to select them and go one by one and reverse them. But there's a tool in Maya that allows us to do that a bit quicker, and that's conform. And conform essentially found all the flipped faces and fixed them. So that's quite handy. So we'll delete our history again, and here's our helicopter. Let's see if we can actually smooth it out a bit, because it is very blocky and very low res. So we might be able to add a subdivision, even though it's going to create quite dirty geometry. It still will make it smoother. First we could probably triangulate it and then quadrangulate it to see if we can get a more quad type of modeling, and then we'll try to subdivide it a little, and let's see if we can subdivide it to 2 subdivs. And without making a lot of changes, this is not bad. I can tell that there's a lot of weird sharp edges everywhere here, so before the subdivision I'm going to select the vertices, and I'm going to do a merge vertices by a relatively small threshold, so that any points that are overlapping will be fused into a single point, and that may allow me to create a better triangulation as well. So let's go triangulate and quadrangulate, and let's delete the history again, and let's try subdividing this. Oops, wrong one. There we are. Okay, and now the issue that we're getting is the weird connections of the glass here. So to fix that, we'll just fix the glass pieces. I'm gonna turn on a feature in Maya that is a border edges, so I can tell where the geometry is open. And I'll go into the hypershade, and I'm going to select objects with the glass material, and that straight away gave me the pieces that were glass, and I'm going to take them out of the model by extracting them, and I'll delete this. Okay, and what that gave me is, we'll combine the glass back together. So what that's given me is a fuselage and a glass thing, because really I think that's the only 2 sets of materials we'll need for this: see-through and metal. Before we get too much further into this, we'll roughly model the landing skis. So let's take a quick look at it. It's relatively easy to model something that looks quite close to what we have here. So let's go ahead and just create a cube, and we'll place it, we'll snap it to where the ski is. We'll scale it relatively the right amount. I'll just leave this here for a sec. I'll put Maya in a corner. I'll put my reference on the other corner. Here we go, it's much better. And I'm just going to extrude the face here and scale it, and that will get us somewhat within the vicinity of what we're looking for. Once again, I'm not being perfect here, I'm just going into the ballpark sort of look. And here we'll extract this out and we'll lift it up, scale it and lift it up. And we'll push that this way a little bit. And because we're trying to do this relatively fast, we're gonna call this done. Just right after we've scaled the top bits a little like that. Okay. And then we'll just duplicate this guy and group it and scale the group, and now we have a mirror. And then we can combine these two, delete the history, and this is a dark black material, so we'll combine our helicopter on a per material basis. So I might have to separate this again. In fact, I don't think I really need to do that. We'll just be sure to put a dark material on this, and let's do it now. New material, and we'll make it a basic blend, and we'll just darken it up a bit, and that's going to be our ski material. We don't really care about the parameters in Maya. It looks to me like the skis need to be a little bit longer. So let's extend that a little. So it almost reaches the elevators back there. And in terms of the nose, I'd be able to pull that in a little. Okay. And then we'll have our glass material. We'll create a new one. And we'll make it blend. We'll make it completely black, and we'll open up the transparency a bit. That's going to be our glass. And now we'll need just our generic green. And that's to give us an idea of what we're doing inside Maya. Let's say military green type thing. Here we go. Oh, we can already see that things are coming together. Let's take a look at the UVs before we go into Unity. And we can see that the UVs are a mess, and that was to be expected. So for the UVs, I'm going to simply project it from the side. So I'm going to create a planar UV, and then I'm going to make sure the center is at 0, make sure the rotations are at 0, and then I'll rotate it 90 degrees on Y. There we go. And going back to our UV editor, we see that we can paint the helicopter from the side, and that should be enough for what we need. And I'm gonna grab the UVs for the propeller and turn that to shell, and I'm gonna put that aside. I'm gonna grab the UVs for I'll just leave these there. that allows us to scale this guy a little bit more. Not a huge deal, but helpful anyway. And then I'm going to export the UV snapshot. And the UV snapshot is going to go directly into our Unity project like we did last time. And if I go to realtime-classics, and we'll go to The Thing, and straight in Unity, well, actually I should create the project first. Straight in Unity, we'll create a new project, and we'll put it in here. And we'll call it The Thing Helicopter. We'll create it. And now we have our assets folder. And in here we can export our texture. So helicopter albedo. And we'll make it a simple JPEG, and we'll export that. There we go. Oh, my custom layouts is gone. That's a bit of a shame. We can work with it. And here we can see that we already have our texture. And let's go straight into Krita and paint some textures. Okay, so now that Krita is open, we'll open up the path. And here we can see that we have our wireframe, and we can make it a additive, so arithmetic addition, and we'll just paint this with the same color as the helicopter. So one thing I like to do is, if I have an image that I have access to, I'll just go ahead and grab it, just copy the image and drop it in a corner outside of the UVs so that I can pick colors from it. It's like a little reference in the corner. And let's paint our background to the same color as the helicopter, which is a lot browner than I saw it, but then again I am a little bit colorblind. Feel like I want to make it a bit greener though, but then again I should trust my computer. Wow, there is no green. This looks green to me. So I was wrong, it's not a green helicopter. What do you know? And we'll create a selection tool here, and we'll just make that nose sort of darker, like we have here. So it looks like it starts at the cockpit there, and then it just, essentially it's just a black thing that goes straight there. And we don't care about the glass because we'll have a different material on it. And same as before, we'll just do a fill here with the same color that we have. This looks very blue to me. That's probably a bit better. There we go, and then we'll do the lock thing here. So you know, one way that we could do this is by actually copying it and putting it there, or we could just roughly recreate it ourselves with a text tool. So I think that might be easier. So I'm going to go ahead and create a text tool and say little O KK, and we'll be sure that it's white. Oh, how do I change the color for make it a bit smaller, and changing the text color. Actually, I'm not sure how to do that. Maybe I needed to have my color already chosen. Let's delete the layer and start again here. Yeah, so now I got my white color. There we go. And we'll create another one straight away up here, and we'll type Norge in capital letters. Alright, and now these two, oh, they're on the same layer. Oh well. And now I can scale that like this and put it on the back. This looks about right, and then select this one, and we'll make sure that it's I'm going to push that down so the O becomes a bit more round. There we go, and if we want to be a little bit more precise, we can just grab a quick white brush on the new layer and keep forgetting to deselect and paint the inside of the O, and then we can grab a purple sort of color and we can do a quick triangle inside. And there we go. And we can deselect it. There is a purple circle around it, but don't know if we really need to worry about that. I mean, we could always just create a circle that fits a bit around it. Create a new layer, fill it up, and then we can transform it. We'll zoom in a bit and we'll move it underneath the text layer, and we can transform it like so until it looks like a bit of a border. There we are, perfect. That's all we need. Okay, any other details? Yes, there's a white area down there, so we'll do that. And it looks to me like it's sort of frosted glass, or maybe they removed the glass and just changed it with a bit of a piece of plastic or something along those lines. We'll have to check in our reference. It's hard to tell, but I don't think it's glass, so we'll take that out of our glass object and we'll put it in here, back into the... And it's sort of a light grey material. Okay. And we have these two bands here, so we can do it really easily by just holding shift. Oh no, this is more of a Photoshop shortcut there that I almost did. We'll just select this, go like that, and then select, and now we can just paint this a little bit off-white. And I think we're looking pretty good. So let's remove this, and let's go ahead and save it. Back in Maya real quick, we just noticed that this was in glass, so we're going to combine this piece into the fuselage piece. We'll select this guy and that guy, and we'll just combine them. There we go, and we'll assign the material that we had assigned to it, the green one. Okay. Okay, so we know this is going to pick up our texture, this is going to be our glass material, and speaking of which, let's combine them. Okay, these can be combined together. And we'll call it glass. Call that fuselage. And call this skis. And group it and call it helicopter. And we have a little bit more manageable object here that we can work with in Unity. And we'll go send to Unity and selection, and we'll have to point it to our project, the thing, Unity. There we go. Okay, and call it helicopter. And let's take a look at what that gave us. So I'm gonna put my project stuff here. Yeah. And I like having my lighting tab over here. Services down here, so I can hide it away. There we go, much better. And my scene tab as well, right? Oh. Okay, that'll do. So back to our reference with my mini Unity here. I can make this a bit bigger, and we can shrink this guy over here. A bit more manageable. And we want our reference, the exact frame that we'll pick is the last frame of the shot. So in case we lose it, we can find it again just by going, okay, it's the last frame of the shot. So let's go find that. Almost there. There we go. And we'll place that here. We can zoom into it a little bit. Okay, so let's start with a game object and a ground terrain. And we'll use that terrain to inform where the mountains are, things like that. So we'll center the terrain up roughly. And because the camera is looking in one direction, we can actually eat up a little bit of the terrain on that side, and we'll have the camera pointing that way. There we go. In terms of lens, this seems a bit too wide for me, so let's shrink it back down to something more like 18mm lens, and we might have to change that a little later, well, depending on how we go. And let's bring it down around here, and let's bring our helicopter in to the scene. Let's have a look at the size of it. And maybe make it a little bit bigger so we can see what's going on. And it's going to be facing that way. And here I can see its shadow. Back down a bit. Okay, so the helicopter is a good start for us to start working out what a terrain size is going to be. So let's make the helicopter smaller, and we'll bring it closer to camera. Bring it down a bit. Here I'm gonna fix my aspect ratio to 16:9, 16:10. Let's go 16:9. And let's see how high the helicopter is from the ground here. This isn't actually too bad. I mean, this helicopter isn't flying very, very high in this. So let's stick with this scale. So now that allows us to just go straight into this terrain and sculpt. And I'm gonna get a brush that's a bit rough and see if I'll turn up the opacity quite a lot. Whoops, I am not painting the right thing. This is what I was meaning to do. And here we go. So we'll go ahead and start painting in the background here until we gonna turn my light just so that I can see what's going on the ground a bit better. There we go. Just to give me some shadows there. And I'm going to turn down the ambient intensity a bit. And let's go back to the ground. Let's start sculpting some rocks. There we go, and then there's like a gentle divot that we can try to do by pushing things down a bit. Okay, this is too much, but then I can just softly remove it. till we have something that matches more what we have. You see how like it's raising back there, and I want to raise this quite a bit higher back here. There we go, something like that. And let's make some more rocky mountain type thing, because I feel like there would be quite a few behind those clouds that we're not seeing. Excellent, and now we'll start painting some snow. There's a bit of snow that climbs up this mountain here. So let's see if we can paint something smooth. Just let's do like a bit of a relatively smooth climb here. Okay, yeah, it's not, obviously it's not perfect, but yeah, that's actually probably worse than what I had before. We'll take care of that by painting. Okay. And now let's paint some colors. So to do that, I'm going to go into the texture here, and I'm going to go edit texture, and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to get a rock texture. I have a lot of those from projects, from other projects, or I can just go online and find a rock texture at textures.com. Oops. Textures. That's what I wanted, and let's say cliff. Getting some sort of cliffside. And yeah, we have something that should work for us quite well. Any of these would really do the job just fine. Let's pick one. Let's pick this one. And let's grab the tileable one. And while we wait for the download, we'll just, well, more for my hard drive to boot up. We'll also go into Unity here, and we'll create a new texture, and we'll make it very small. And we'll make it just off-white. And image size can be 256. It really doesn't need to be big, because all we're doing is a single color. It could even be 1 pixel really. And we'll save that as a JPEG. And we'll put it in our project here, and we'll call that Snow White. There we go. And how's that download doing? So we've got a download here, and we'll just drag and drop that directly in Unity. We don't need to take it into Krita, because we're not going to modify it. And now I can add a texture, and we'll go and find the rock sharp, and we'll add it for now. And we go add texture, and we'll go find our snow, and we'll add that. And this rock sharp, I want to make a very quick normal map to it, so I'll grab that and duplicate it. Duplicate. And I'm going to rename it normal. And I'm going to rename this one albedo just for the sake of, there we go. And the normal map one I will convert to a normal map directly inside Unity. To do that, I can just go to normal map here and apply. And Unity should do a good enough job because I'm just looking for breakup. I'm not looking for much more. And let's go back to our terrain object. And here we'll just go edit and we'll add the normal map that we just made. And now you can see that we have somewhat a bit of a breakup there going on. Now this is going to be a bit of a nightmare here. So let's get our size right in terms of duplication. We want it to be high res. I mean, really, we don't see much in the end result. I feel like in many ways we don't even really need the normal map, but let's leave it in there. It's better to have too much detail than not enough. And then our snow doesn't need anything. And we'll swap. Actually, right now I'll just remove that because I want it to be white by default. And then I want to add our rock as a secondary one that we'll paint on where we want it. And we'll paint it in the areas that have stone, roughly matching our reference. There we go. These are all going to be stones. And then there we go. Something along those lines. These background mountains are way too big here. Before I go any further, I'll just try to actually fix that a bit because I went a little crazy on this side. So let's remove what we got. Let's remove what we got here. Let's get that cool little brush again. Make it small. Let's make some smaller, sharper. Probably further into the distance. There we go, and I feel like something like that is still a bit much, but definitely better than what we had before. Let's smooth that stuff out a bit, take it down a notch, and let's mess up the horizon a bit so we don't have to deal with the horizon cutoff. There we go. Nice. Smooth that out a bit. There we go. Now you see that the snow is strange and the reflection is a bit weird. First of all, that's because we've moved our light in quite an extreme way to be able to see what we're doing. So let's fix that immediately and go into more of a top-down day. It's really hard to tell exactly where the light's coming from, but because the helicopter's so dark, it gives me a feeling that the light's actually coming from back there. And the reason we can see everything and it's not fully backlit is because the snow is so bright, it bounces light around. But generally the image has quite a flat lighting because the light is so diffuse with all these clouds as well in the way. So something like that. And then let's go back to our terrain. And our terrain, we're gonna need better looking material for this. And so the material will go to Legacy Diffuse. And that's gonna give us a material that's a bit less specular and that will behave a little bit better. And let's go back to our lighting and turn back our ambient intensity to what we had. And we could even turn it a little bit more because it's quite a diffuse day out. And let's take a look at the technique that we used on the No Country for Old Men project. We had a cloud shading, cloud gobo. Let's go pick up that same cloud globo that we had in No Country for Old Men. And we'll go to Assets and let's find that cloud texture that we made. Here it was. I believe it was the PNG that we were looking for. We'll put that in here. And inside the light editor here, I'll drag the cookie in here. And now we have our magical cloud thing. And we can change the size to something quite a lot larger. And then we can start moving the light back and forth until we have something that looks a bit more like what we have in here. There we go. And another thing we can do, because it does get pretty overcast back there, we can create a, like let's say a sphere and make another fake bigger cloud that's going to cast a shadow for us. And hopefully, if we put it high enough, we won't see it. It'll just be like a de facto cloud. Okay, and it looks like the shadow is not being cast, and that's because the shadow distance is probably small. Okay. Not too sure why I'm not getting a proper shadow from this. Yeah, let's give up on this idea. Okay, so on the helicopter we'll very quickly fix our shaders. So let's go to where the helicopter is and we'll grab the glass and just be sure that it is see-through looking, which it is. We'll add our texture to our helicopter material. And here it is. There we go. And because we're doing it this way, we have to flip it. So let's very quickly go in here and just flip this that way. I'll turn that back on. And we'll grab the circle that we made. And we'll image a layer and transform and mirror horizontally, and we'll very quickly place that back to where we had it over here, and then we'll move that circle, so we select it and transform it. There we go. And we'll have to flip this layer as well. So let's see what we can do here. Like that. Okay, and we'll disable the wireframe display and save. And we'll just wait for the texture to update. So one thing that becomes obvious when the light is a bit brighter is that our terrain texture here is probably not tiled enough. So we can just go to edit and we'll make it a bit smaller tiling wise. That looks a bit better, and we have a few peaks here that look a little bit unnatural. So let's find out who they are, or where they are, and let's just smooth them out. Oh no, that's not a peak, that's actually the helicopter tail. Cool. And let's bring back our reference. There it is. Okay. And I feel like our light could do with some tweaking. Maybe something like that. And it's quite a foggy day, so we'll be sure to turn up in our skybox. We can create a new material that we call sky, and we'll make it a skybox procedural, and we'll put it in our lighting like that. And here now that gives us control in here over the atmosphere thickness. We'll keep our color, but in here we'll get atmosphere, sky tint, ground tint. Be sure that that's a bit brighter. And bring that to something a bit bluer. Let's see what we can do here. There. And we're getting some strange color up the top of the helicopter there, and I imagine that just comes from a relatively strangely angled light. Or it could be caused by bad normals. Yeah, it's just the light that does this. Okay, and it looks to me like the lock word needs to be much brighter. What we'll do is we'll actually duplicate this light and we'll create a light, a bounce light. So one that faces up from the ground and towards the helicopter. And we'll make that one, we'll delete it and we'll make a new one, and we'll create a directional one, and then we'll point it at the helicopter more, coming from our side of the camera. And then we can play with the intensity to fill our frame a little bit better. Let's take a look at our glass material. Rendering mode is transparent, that's what we want. Smoothness will make it a bit sharper. It doesn't need to be metallic. And we need to put something inside the helicopter that makes it seem like there's a pilot and seats and stuff. Let's put a box in here for now. And we can give this box a its own material. Make it a dark color. I'll just add it to the cube. Okay. And in this way we can roughly give the impression that there is indeed something inside this. Helicopter, just creating a bit of complexity. There we go. Now let's work on our fuselage material, and let's get some better looking metallicity, higher smoothness. Okay, and let's grab our skis material, and they definitely need to be much darker color and a lot less reflective. There we are. We can rotate our helicopter towards the camera a bit more. Make it point down a bit. Oh, I forgot. We need to put these cubes inside. There we go. Okay, and we can see that there's a lot of white here, so we'll copy that. And we'll go back to our painting and we'll paint some snow back in that area. Okay. And we'll go ahead and paint some rocks on the peaks back there. And over there. Okay. Can get rid of the rock stuff here. This is not going to be needed. Alright, let's move on to the clouds. I feel like our clouds here need to be a bit bigger. Let's increase the size of maybe even to much larger. And that means that we can place our light here a bit with a bit more control and not so much tiling. There we go, that's a lot better. Perfect. Getting pretty close, guys. Let's save our scene. And let's add the cloud bank. So for the cloud bank, I have found this amazing extension that I would recommend to anyone that needs to do anything like this. And this extension is called, I think it's called Fog something. So let's have a look. Fog. Volumetric Fog by Chronict. Very cool little thing. What it does is it creates deformed geometry, like a procedural geometry with a bit of a noise, and then it, based on the camera, it blurs out the edges, and it gives a feeling of volumetric look to the object that it creates and renders. It has shaders, geometry, procedural geometry generator, and it has a camera effect that comes along with it. And we can import everything. We don't need all the demos, but that's okay. Once everything has imported, we'll see here that we have our volumetric fog asset, and we can go into scripts and drag and drop this onto our camera. And we'll just grab this volumetric fog and drop it on there. We'll go OK. And yeah, and we can disable the options that we don't want in here. And we can set it to a preset, and sea clouds is something that, look at that. So now we can raise the sea cloud a bit. And hopefully I will be able to reverse it this actually might be a bit of a challenge. As an interesting challenge, actually. Oh, base height, here we go. There we go, perfect. That was easier than I thought. Let's go 15, 18, 19, 19, 18, not bad. Okay, and don't know if we need to... There we go, get a little bit more shape there, and bring it down a bit to maybe down to 16, 15, and scale it until we get maybe a bit more texture, but not too much repeating patterns. And we can turn up the noise a little bit. Make it quite a high density. In the colors, there's a bit of yellow. We'll change that to something a bit bluer. And we'll make the clouds themselves a little bit more of a grayish blue hue. There we go. And we can go back to either the height or the base height and get it until it hits the horizon. So 14, 12. 12 is a bit too much inside the camera, but we can fix that by maybe lowering the height here. 12, 10, that's good. 11, and actually let's go back to what we had, 16 and a height of 4, and we'll increase the max distance, and that might... No, that's not. So we'll need to use it. Oops. And we'll need to create some actual fog to compensate for that. So let's go into our lighting tab, turn on the fog, and give our fog a slightly bluer tint. And something along those lines. And I'm gonna have to play around with the sky color to get rid of that bright horizon that we have, and that's definitely our sky's fault. In fact, what I might even do is actually raise the ground high enough back there so that it covers the horizon. And let's do it with a relatively soft brush, but large. I will just raise our horizon as much as possible back there. There we go. That's a little better. We're getting pretty close to being done. Another thing I want to do is make the text a bit brighter. So I can go back to my... Well, this is already quite white, bright white. So let's see if we can just drag that texture into our helicopter shader. And we'll grab the albedo and put it in metallic. Here, albedo, and see if we can put it in here. And we're getting the reverse effect. So what we will do is go into Krita and create a layer, a new layer from visible, and we'll desaturate it and we'll invert it. And here adjust, invert, and we'll save that as our specular map. And now we'll grab this new texture inside metallic, and there we go. We have a much brighter lock thing here. Then we can increase the ambient a little bit, but not too much. Maybe increase our directional light that's actually lighting the helicopter. Nope. We might even be able to let's see if we turn this shader into a standard specular setup. See what that gives us. And we can drag and drop our specular spec in there. Okay. And we'll reverse it. And inverse, and we'll save that again. There we go, much better. Take down the smoothness a little, and we're all. And a few things I'd like to do just before I call this done is darken up the sky a little bit, so the cloud bank or the cloud layer isn't so high, so bright. I might try to lower it a little bit, but I don't know if this plugin will really work in this instance. And we'll also darken up the rocky areas of the mountain. So let's start with darkening up the mountains. I'll just open that in Explorer, and I'll open up Krita, and I'll drag and drop it in here, and I'll open it as a new document. And now I can go inside my filter and do a little bit of adjustment, and I'll just bring up my contrast curves, and I'm going to go ahead and turn up the contrast a bit, but especially darken it. There we go, much darker, and we'll leave it with that little hue because it's not really messing with us. Let's just keep it that way, and we'll just save it and wait for it to reload in Unity. And that's a bit darker and a bit nicer. We might even be able to actually remove that normal map that we made. So if I just go to no normal maps, it's picking up a bit less of the lighting, and that I feel like that works better. Let's see if we can play with the size a little bit better, a little bit more, to right. That's probably a better size for what we want. Okay, we can apply that. And let's darken up the clouds a tiny bit. So to do that, we go on our camera, and in the inspector, in our volumetric filter, we can just pick the fog colors and just darken that up a bit. There we go. Maybe darken this as well. Although this is not making a huge difference. Changing our specular may work. No, specular intensity. I guess the light is coming from a different direction. Well, light intensity does the job actually. There we are. I can move it a bit. Can increase the turbulence, although the turbulence, no, that's just for animation. Sky haze, we'll leave it as is because we've already dealt with that back there. Still have quite a difference between this and that. Let's see if we can compensate by changing our lighting intensity up here. Oops, 0.2. Maybe turning up the intensity of our sunlight. It's a bit nicer, but maybe a bit much. There we go, it's a bit more balanced. Could raise our helicopter a little bit in frame. So the focus is more on the helicopter. And we'll save that. And it looks almost done. Maybe the only thing I could think of doing is darkening this rock layer even more. And so to do that, I'll just multiply it by black. And there we go. Let's see if that helps take down the brightness of our mountains even more. There we go. Much better. Much better. Right. Let's smooth that bit of the terrain. Can add a little bit of variation in the snow, even though it's not really in the frame. I feel like it adds a bit of realism here now in our scene. And let's maximize what we have here. Let's add some final camera effects. So we'll bring up our standard packages. And we'll import the effects. That will import our final camera effects, where I can do a little bit of fine tuning in terms of the color range and everything like that. And all we need are image effects. We don't need anything else. So let's just import those. And we'll fold that in, and we'll go to the scripts in the standard assets. And we'll add a small amount of vignetting. Whoops, let's re-import those. And we'll leave everything checked because I think it needs some dependencies. Okay, now that we have all the assets loaded, our standard assets should have the image effects. That's what we're looking for. We only imported the editor ones previously, that's why it wasn't working. And we'll put the vignetting, chromatic aberration, we'll turn it up a bit, and we'll blur the corners. It's always a nice thing to imitate film. And we'll grab our curves, color correction curves. We'll do a small amount of color correction. We'll keep most of them as is. But what we'll do is play with the blues a little bit here. Maybe increase the blues in the shadows. And decrease it in the highlights. Although I feel like that's taken away from what we've been doing. It was very close, so I don't. In fact, the color curves might be a bit too much for this. And apart from that, we can always add a tiny bit of bloom that may help bring things out a bit, but not too much. Go to 2.5 and we'll turn up the threshold a small amount. And we'll use that vignetting to bring the focus more towards the frame. And there we go. Just before I maximize it and call it done, I'll add some anti-aliasing so that we get rid of these ugly edges, and maximize. And I'll just put that on one side, I'll put that on the other. And now that I see it a little bit bigger, I feel like I should have done quite a lot more work in detailing the mountains back here. And probably found a way to darken up the specular reflection from the ground onto the helicopter. But we are pretty close here, and this is actually looking quite good for the amount of time that we put into it. Okay guys, as always, suggest movie frames in the comments, and subscribe, like, and all that jazz. And thanks for listening, and see you for another one very soon. Bye.